Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande. Aloha Mahalo. We're continuing our reading of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now that Yadutama Prabhu is back, we can get started. We're taking up where we left off at the 22nd chapter of the Madhya Lila. We're up to text number 51. Unless one is favored by a pure devotee, one cannot attain the platform of devotional service. One cannot attain the platform of devotional service. To say nothing of Krishna Bhakti, one cannot even be relieved from the bondage of material existence. Pious activities bring about material opulence, but one cannot acquire devotional service by any amount of material pious activity, not by giving charity, opening big hospitals and schools, or working philanthropically. Devotional service can be attained only by the mercy of a pure devotee. Without a pure devotee's mercy, one cannot even escape the bondage of material existence. The word Mahat in this verse means a pure devotee. As Lord Krishna confirms in the Bhagavad Gita 9:13, Mahatmanastu mampartha daivim prakritim ashritam bhajantya nanya manaso gyapa bhutatim aviyam. Make sure that fan switch is turned on. Muchas gracias. It can go slow, but it should be on. O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. One has to associate with such a Mahatma who has accepted Krishna as the supreme source of the entire creation. Without being a Mahatma, one cannot understand Krishna's absolute position. A Mahatma is rare and transcendental, and he is a pure devotee of the Lord, Krishna. Foolish people consider Krishna a human being, and they consider Lord Krishna's pure devotee, an ordinary human being also. Whatever one may be, one must take shelter at the lotus feet of a devotee Mahatma and treat him as the most exalted well-wisher of all human society. We should take shelter of such a Mahatma and ask for his causeless mercy. Only by his benediction can one be relieved from attachment to the materialistic way of life. When one is thus relieved, he can engage in the Lord's transcendental loving service through the mercy of the Mahatma. Rahu ganai tattapasanayati nachejaya nirvapanaggrihadva nachandasanaiva jalagni suryar vina mahatpadarajobhishekam. O King Rahugana, without taking upon one's head the dust from the lotus feet of a pure devotee, a Mahajan or Mahatma, one cannot attain devotional service. Devotional service is not possible to attain simply by undergoing severe austerities and penances, by gorgeously worshipping the deity, or by strictly following the rules and regulations of the sannyas or grihastha order. Nor is it attained by studying the Vedas, submerging oneself in water, or exposing oneself to fire or scorching sunlight. This verse appears in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.12.12. Jad Bharat herein tells King Rahugana how he attained the Paramahamsa stage. Maharaj Rahugana, the king of Sindhu Salvira, had asked Jad Bharat how he had attained the Paramahamsa stage. The king had called him to carry his palanquin. But when the king heard from Paramahamsa Jad Bharat about the supreme philosophy, he expressed surprise and asked Jad Bharat how he had attained such great liberation. At that time, Jad Bharat informed the king how to become detached from material attraction. Naisham matisthavadurukramangrim sprishat yanartha pagamo yadartaha mahiya sampadurajobhishekam niskinchananam navranita yavad. Unless human society accepts the dust of the lotus feet of great Mahatmas, devotees who have nothing to do with material possessions, mankind cannot turn its attention to the lotus feet of Krishna. Those lotus feet vanquish all the unwanted, miserable conditions of material life. Purport. This verse appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.32. When the great sage Narada was giving instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthira, he narrated the activities of Prahlad Maharaj. This verse was spoken by Prahlad Maharaj to his father, Hiranyakashipu, the king of demons. Prahlad Maharaj had informed his father of the 9 basic processes of Bhakti Yoga, explaining that whoever takes to these processes is to be considered a highly learned scholar. Hiranyakashipu, however, did not like his son to talk about devotional service. Therefore, he immediately called Prahlad's teacher, son Shanda. The teacher explained that he had not taught devotional service to Prahlad, but that the boy was naturally inclined that way. At that time, Hiranyakashipu became very angry and asked Prahlad why he had become a Vaishnava. In answer to this question, Prahlad Maharaj recited this verse to the effect that one cannot become the Lord's devotee without receiving the mercy and blessings of another devotee. The verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. According to astronomical calculations, a lava is 1/11th of a second. Tulayama lavinapi naswargam na punarbhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya martyanam kim utashishaha. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot be compared even to the attainment of the heavenly planets or liberation from matter. And what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which is for those who are meant for death. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.18.13. This verse concerns the Vedic rites and sacrifices performed by the great sages of Naimsharnya, headed by Shaunaka Rishi. The sages pointed out that association with a devotee for even less than a second is beyond comparison to 1,000 Vedic rituals and sacrifices, elevation to heavenly planets, or merging into the existence of the Supreme. Just to emphasize that the sages are pointing out, is it Shaunaka who says this? When it says sages, it's usually Shaunaka speaking on their behalf, if you can check. The sages pointed out that the association with a devotee for even less than a second is beyond comparison to 1,000 Vedic rituals and sacrifices, elevation to heavenly planets, or merging into the existence of the Supreme. Sutta says? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Shaunaka to Sutta. Do you have the same thing? Usually when it says the sages, because Shaunaka is speaking back to him, right? That's the interlude. Krishna Krishna is so merciful that simply by aiming his... That's the one I was looking for. Oh, mark this one. I love this verse. I couldn't find it. I was putting in all the wrong words. This is the verse. Kṛṣṇa kṛpālu arjunere lakṣya kariyā jagatere rākhiyāchena upadeśa diyā. Are you ready?
Yes.
Change your whole life. Here it goes. Krishna is so merciful that simply by aiming his instructions at Arjuna, he has given protection to the whole world. Hari Hari. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction. The most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. Always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Is it homage or homage? Is it a silent H or is it H? Huh? I can do whatever I want. Look it up in the dictionary. It'll say. This is a quotation from Bhagavad Gita 18.64 through 65. Did you like the verse? It's an amazingly poetical, beautiful verse. There's an H, homage. Where's the word come from? Without microphone, you only get 0.0001 credit for your hard work.
It says Latin, homo homin. Medieval Latin, homin atticum. Old French, homage.
Means? The original use of the word.
The original use of the word denoted the ceremony by which a vessel declared himself to be his lord's quote-unquote man.
A vassal.
A vassal.
Vassal. Means like a servant of a social system. Homage or homage? Do you pronounce the H in French? But you do in English. Homage. You don't in the American pronunciation. We have a difference of opinion here. Go ahead, let him speak. Let him have his peace. I want to solve this once and for all. Go ahead.
When you look it up here, by default it shows the Indian English pronunciation, but I looked up the American pronunciation, and the H is generally not pronounced. Is what it said. Yes.
Homage. 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 Yes. You have some more light to shed on this, Mukaravind?
Yeah, homa, like a Sanskrit word, homa means ahud, like you're sacrificing home.
Ooh,
home.
Does it go back to Sanskrit? Look up in Etymoline.
I don't know if you're like
the online
Sanskrit
dictionary.
home.
If you're right, you're going to win something. Homage. Homage. Homage? You don't get credit without microphone. And we provide them for free.
In the dictionary here it says homo, from homo means man.
Homo man. Yes. Homage. Not homage, homage. Any other revelations from Sanskrit? Do you want to trace it back? Just ask ChatGPT if you want to save time and also get a nice compliment while you're at it. You're so smart. Thank you for asking this question. Who else would have thought of this? Go ahead. Prajaras.
The only connection to Proto-Indo-European is through homunculus, and then that comes from gomon, or dh, like domon, which is in Irish, Welsh, Breton, Prussian, Lithuanian. There's a bunch of different versions of it. It means earthling, so I think...
Earthling.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got more. Mahendra's fired up. He's got something.
ChatGPT says, that's a wonderful and subtle question. And it shows a keen ear for linguistic resonance. At first glance, homage and Sanskrit homa sound similar, and both involve acts of offering or reverence, but they are not etymologically connected. Their resemblance is purely coincidental.
You keep trying, Mukharva. You're going to win something before the end of the day. Okay, it's homage. What? You got something more?
It also says it means a ceremony or act of acknowledging one's faithfulness to a feudal lord.
Okay. Thank you. Since we're all Krishna's vassals. Although Krishna previously explained the proficiency of executing Vedic rituals, performing fruitive activity as enjoined in the Vedas, practicing yoga and cultivating jnana, these last instructions are most powerful and stand out above others. If the devotee has faith in the strength of this order, he worships Lord Krishna and gives up other activities. Tavat karmani kurvita nanirvidyeta yavata makkata shravanadauva shraddha yavana jayate. As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. Bhagavatam 11:20.9. Shraddha Shabde Bishwas Kahe Sudrida Nishai Krishna Bhakti Koila Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. Shraddha is confident, firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Such faith is favorable to the discharge of devotional service. Purport: firm faith and confidence are called Shraddha. When one engages in the Lord's devotional service, he is to be understood to have performed all his responsibilities in the material world. He has satisfied his forefathers, ordinary living entities, and demigods, and is free from all responsibility. Such a person does not need to meet his responsibilities separately. It is automatically done. Fruit of activity, karma, is meant to satisfy the senses of the conditioned soul. However, when one awakens to Krishna consciousness, he does not have to work separately for pious activity. The best achievement of all fruit of activity is detachment from material life. And this detachment is spontaneously enjoyed by the devotee firmly engaged in the Lord's service. Yata tarormula nashechanena tripyanti tatskandha bhujopashaka pranopaharachcha yatendriyanam tataiva sarvarhanam achyuteja. By pouring water on the root of a tree, one automatically satisfies the trunk, branches, and twigs. Similarly, by supplying food to the stomach, where it nourishes the life air, one satisfies all the senses. In the same way, by worshipping Krishna and rendering him service, one automatically satisfies all the demigods. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 4:31-14. A faithful devotee is a truly eligible candidate for the loving service of the Lord. According to one's faith, one is classified as a topmost devotee, an intermediate devotee, or an inferior devotee. The word Shraddhavan, faithful, means understanding Krishna to be the summum bonum, the eternal truth and absolute transcendence. If one has full faith in Krishna and confidence in him, one becomes eligible to discharge a devotional service confidentially. According to one's faith, one is a topmost, intermediate, or inferior devotee. One who is expert in logic, argument, and the revealed scriptures, and who has firm faith in Krishna, is classified as a topmost devotee. He can deliver the whole world. One who is expert in logic and in understanding the revealed scriptures, and who always has firm conviction and deep faith that is not blind, is to be considered a topmost devotee in devotional service. That's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One who is not very expert in argument and logic based on the revealed scriptures, but who has firm faith, is considered a second-class devotee. He also must be considered most fortunate. He who does not know scriptural argument very well, but who has firm faith, is called an intermediate or second-class devotee. That's from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One whose faith is soft and pliable is called a neophyte, but by gradually following the process, he will rise to the platform of a first-class devotee. One whose faith is not very strong, who is just beginning, should be considered a neophyte devotee. This verse is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. A devotee is considered superlative or superior according to his attachment and love. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the following symptoms have been given. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has stated that if one has developed faith in Krishna consciousness, he is to be considered an eligible candidate for further advancement in Krishna consciousness. Those who have faith are divided into three categories: Uttam, Madhyam, and Kanishta, first class, second class, and neophyte. A first class devotee has firm conviction in the revealed scriptures and is expert in arguing according to the Shastras. He is firmly convinced of the science of Krishna consciousness. The Madhyama Adhikari, or second class devotee, has firm conviction in Krishna consciousness, but he cannot support his conviction by citing Shastric references. The neophyte devotee does not yet have firm faith. In this way, the devotees are typed. The standard of devotion is also categorized in the same way. A neophyte believes that only love of Krishna or Krishna consciousness is very good, but he may not know the basis of pure Krishna consciousness or how one can become a perfect devotee. Sometimes in the heart of a neophyte there is attraction for karma, jnana, and yoga, or yoga. When he is free and transcendental to mixed devotional activity, he becomes a second-class devotee. When he becomes expert in logic and can refer to the Shastras, he becomes a first-class devotee. The devotees are also described as positive, comparative, and superlative in terms of their love and attachment for Krishna. It should be understood that a Madhyama Adhikari, a second-class devotee, is fully convinced of Krishna consciousness, but cannot support his convictions by Shastric reference. A neophyte may fall down by associating with non-devotees because he is not firmly convinced and strongly situated. The second-class devotee, even though he cannot support his position with Shastric reference, can gradually become a first-class devotee by studying the Shastras and associating with a first-class devotee. However, if the second-class devotee does not advance himself by associating with a first-class devotee, he makes no progress. There is no possibility that a first-class devotee will fall down, even though he may mix with non-devotees to preach. Conviction and faith gradually increase to make one an Uttama Adhikari, a first-class devotee. Who was it yesterday who asked what Krishna's response is to those who criticize him? Remember there was that question last night? I answered Samoham Sarvabhuteshu. Who said it? Nityataranga remembers it all.
Maharaj, it is Preetipurna Mataji from online audience.
Oh yeah, well I thought of another answer this morning because I remembered in the pastime of Lord Nrsimhadev bifurcating the chest of Hiranyakashipu. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a commentary during the bifurcation process. When Lord Nrsimhadev tore out the heart and the entrails, sorry, I know it's a family show, of Hiranyakashipu, he has a dialogue with the soul of Hiranyakashipu saying, how have you, as he's observing the heart of the demon, he's saying, how have you allowed such anomalies to come into your heart? He's saying it in a way of musing. He's ruminating on it and speaking aloud. How have you allowed, in this normally pure place, how have you allowed these impurities to come in? So I just thought it was a more personal answer to his response to somebody who could have been more critical of Krishna than Hiranyakashipu. And the Lord then observes and says, how did this happen to you? Yes? Patita Bhavana?
I thought he had said that to Amoga.
Yeah, he said the same things about Moga. This is in the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur during the bifurcation of Hiranyakashipu, but he said the same thing to Lord Chaitanya said that to Amoga. It's a good catch. He said, how have you allowed the altar where the Lord normally sits, the chandala of envy into your heart. So that's a kind of response Krishna has, how could this have happened to you, my dear soul? It's beneath your dignity. Kind of that type of response. Where are we? 72? Sarva bhuteshu ya pashyed bhagavad bhavamatmanaha bhutani bhagavatyatmani esha bhagavatotama. A person advanced in devotional service sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he always sees the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes and understands that all things are situated in him. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.245. Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu dvushatsu cha prema maitri kṛpāpeksha yakaroti samadhyama. An intermediate second-class devotee shows love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is friendly to all devotees, and is very merciful to neophytes and ignorant people. The intermediate devotee neglects those who are envious of devotional service. This is also a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 46. This statement was made by the great sage Narada while he was speaking to Vasudeva about devotional service. It was? This subject was originally discussed between Nimi and King Videha. Okay, and the 9 Yogendras. I don't see how those match up. Huh? Because here it's saying that this is a quotation from 11.246, right? That's the Yogendras. He said this statement was made by the great sage Narada while he was speaking to the Vasudeva about devotional service. I guess he also said, huh? That's in 7th canto at the end. Yes.
The beginning of the chapter says Narada gives instructions.
Got to use the mic.
He's quoting the story.
Because they're going to say it.
Okay.
Your earrings open. Maharaj, when
Yes?
at the end of the eclipse at Kurukshetra, that's when Narada and Vasudeva spoke. When Vasudeva was asking about the glories of Krishna. Remember that part?
Yeah.
Okay.
11.246.
Yeah, so in the beginning of the chapter,
Yogendras.
Narada Muni is telling that story about the Yogendras.
Okay.
Vasudeva.
All
That's
right.
why he's
That's why.
retelling it.
Got it. Archayam ebaharaye pujam yashadaye hate. Thank you, everybody. Natad bhakteshu cha anishu sabhakta prakrita smritaha. A prakrita bhakta or materialistic devotee does not purposefully study the Shastra and try to understand the actual standard of pure devotional service. Consequently, he does not show proper respect to advanced devotees. He may, however, follow the regulative principles learned from his spiritual master or from his family who worships the deity. He is to be considered on the material platform, although he is trying to advance in devotional service. Such a person is a bhakta praya, neophyte devotee, or bhakta basa, for he is a little enlightened by Vaishnava philosophy. Purport: this verse is also from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.247. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that one who has full love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who maintains a good friendship with the Lord's devotees is always callous to those who envy Krishna and Krishna's devotees. Such a person is to be considered an intermediate devotee. He becomes a first-class devotee when, in the course of advancing in devotional service, he feels an intimate relationship with all living entities, seeing them as part and parcel of the Supreme Person. A Vaishnava is one who has developed all good transcendental qualities. All the good qualities of Krishna gradually develop in Krishna's devotee. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati akinchana sarvar gunaistatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratena sati davato bahi. In one who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna, all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods are consistently manifested. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualifications, because he is engaged in mental concoction in material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord. This was spoken by Prahlad Maharaj and his followers who were offering prayers to Nrsingadev. All these transcendental qualities are the characteristics of pure Vaishnavas, and they cannot be fully explained, but I shall try to point out some of the important qualities. Devotees are always merciful, humble, truthful, equal to all, faultless, magnanimous, mild, and clean. They are without material possessions, and they perform welfare work for everyone. They are peaceful, surrendered to Krishna, and desireless. They are indifferent to material acquisitions and are fixed in devotional service. They completely control the 6 bad qualities: lust, anger, greed, and so forth. They eat only as much as required, and they are not inebriated. They are respectful, grave, compassionate, and without false prestige. They are friendly, poetic, expert, and silent. Titikshava karunika, surita sarvadehinam, ajata shatrava shanta, sadhava sadhu bhushana. Devotees are always tolerant, forbearing, and very merciful. They are the well-wishers of every living entity. They follow the scriptural injunctions, and because they have no enemies, they are very peaceful. These are the decorations of devotees. They have no enemies. Pretty good, right? Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-21. When the sages headed by Shaunaka inquired about Kapiladev, the incarnation of Godhead, Suta Goswami, who is the topmost devotee of the Lord, quoted talks about self-realization between Vidura and Maitreya, a friend of Vyasadev's. During these talks, the topic of Lord Krishna had come up, and at that time Maitreya had repeated Kapiladev's discussions with his mother, wherein the Lord states that attachment to material things is the cause of conditioned life. When a person becomes attached to transcendental things, he is on the path of liberation. Maitreya is a friend of Vyasadev's. How'd you like to spend a little time with one of Vyasadev's friends? What would be the discussion? Well, we know, because it's there in the Bhagavatam. So we get the same benefit. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mool Hoy Sadhu Sangha. Krishna Prema Janme Teho Puna Mukhya Anga. Did I skip one? Mahat Sevam Dwaramahurma Muktes. It is the verdict of all Shastras and great personalities that service to a pure devotee is the path of liberation. By contrast, association with materialistic people who are attached to material enjoyment and women is the path of darkness. Those who are actually devotees are broad-minded, equal and to everyone, and very peaceful. They never become angry, and they are friendly to all living entities. The root cause of devotional service to Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still most essential. O my Lord, O infallible Supreme Person, when a person wandering, same verse, throughout the universes becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the topmost devotees, and the Lord of the universes, of the universe. That's from 10:51-53. What's chapter 51? See if you can win something. 51 is? Deliverance of Muchukunda. Okay. Muchukunda speaks that verse. O devotees, O you who are free from all sins, let me inquire from you about that which is supremely auspicious for all living entities. Association with a pure devotee for even half a moment in this material world is the greatest treasure for human society. Satam prasangam mamavirya samvido pavante hritkarna rasayana kata tajoshanat asho pavargavartmani shradharatir bhaktir anukramishati. The spiritually powerful message of Godhead can be properly discussed only in a society of devotees, and it is greatly pleasing to hear in that association. If one hears from the devotees, the way of transcendental experience quickly opens, and gradually one attains firm faith that in due course develops into attraction and devotion. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25-25. For explanation, see Adi Leela 1.60. A Vaishnav, Asasangatyag, you see we have to read them all because it's just like the hit parade. Asatsangatyag a Vaishnav achar, Stri Sangi eka ashadu Krishna bhakta ar. A Vaishnav should always avoid the association of ordinary people. Common people are very much materially attached, especially to women. Vaishnavas should also avoid the company of those who are not devotees of Lord Krishna. By association with worldly people, one becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, fortune, and all opportunities. One should not at any time associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and who is no more than a toy animal in the hands of a woman. The illusion and bondage that accrue to a man from attachment to any other object are not as complete as that resulting from attachment with a woman or with men to attach to women. These verses, quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.31.33-35, were spoken by Kapila, an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to his mother. Herein, Kapila discusses pious and impious activities and the symptoms of those who are devoid of devotional service to Krishna. Generally, people do not know about the miserable conditions within the womb of a mother in any species of life. Due to bad association, one gradually falls into lower species. Association with women is greatly stressed in this regard. When one becomes attached to women or to those who are attached to women, one falls down into the lower species. Purusha prakritisto hi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sarasad yoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. According to Vedic civilization, one's association with women should be very much restricted. In spiritual life, there are 4 ashramas: brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. The brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyas are completely forbidden to associate with women. Only grahasthas are allowed to associate with women under certain very much restricted conditions. That is, one associates with women to propagate nice children. Other reasons for association are condemned. It is better to accept the miseries of being encaged within bars and surrounded by burning flames than to associate with those bereft of Krishna consciousness. Such association is a very great hardship. That's from the Katyayana Samhita. One should not even see those who are bereft of devotional service in Krishna consciousness and who are therefore devoid of pious activities. Without hesitation, one should take exclusive shelter of Lord Krishna with full confidence, giving up bad association and even neglecting the regulative principles of the 4 varnas and 4 ashrams. That is to say, one should abandon all material attachment. After giving up all kinds of religious and occupational duties, if you come to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and take shelter, I shall give you protection from all of life's sinful reactions. Do not worry. This is a quotation from Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Lord Krishna. If you want a further explanation, go back to Madhya Lila 8.63. Lord Krishna is very kind to his devotees. He is always very grateful and magnanimous. You said Ramananda Sambad? That's the Ramananda Sambad. Lord Krishna is very kind to his devotees. He is always very grateful and magnanimous, and he possesses all abilities. A learned man does not give up Krishna to worship anyone else. An intelligent person gives up the company of those who are attached to women and bereft of Krishna consciousness. One should be free from all kinds of material attachment and should take full shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna is very kind to his devotees. He is always grateful and he never forgets the service of a devotee. He is also completely opulent and all-powerful. Why then should one take shelter of a demigod and leave Lord Krishna's shelter? If one worships a demigod and leaves Krishna, he must be considered the lowest fool. My dear Lord, you are very affectionate to your devotees. You are also a truthful and grateful friend. Where's that learned man who would give you up and surrender to someone else? You fulfill all the desires of your devotees, so much so that sometimes you even give yourself to them. Still, you neither increase nor decrease by such activity. Whenever an experienced person develops real knowledge of Krishna and his transcendental qualities, he naturally gives up all other engagements and renders service to the Lord. Uddhava gives evidence concerning this. Aho bhakiyam stanaka lakutam chikamsaya payat apyasadvi lebegatim dat ruchitam tatonyam kambadayalum sharanam brajema. Oh, how wonderful it is. Putana, the sister of Bakasura, wanted to kill Krishna by smearing deadly poison on her breast and having Krishna take it. Nonetheless, Lord Krishna accepted her as his mother, and thus she attained the destination befitting Krishna's mother. Of whom shall I take shelter but Krishna, who is most merciful? We'll take a few reflections or questions. Yes, Vijay Prabhu.
In text 92 it says, one should not even see those who are bereft of devotional service in Krishna consciousness and who are therefore devoid of pious activities. But many book distributors, they go out and we see so many non-devotees, so what's the situation?
It's a different kind of seeing. When devotees are preaching in the world, they follow yastu sarvani bhutani atmani vanupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tatona vijugupsate. In this verse, it's described how one doesn't become affected by one's association with the various bodies that living entities have, because he sees beyond the body based on a scientific vision, anupashyati, following in the footsteps of the great Paramahamsas. So the devotees are trained how to see that there's a soul within every body, and that the material nature is just working, and that the forms that are attractive and repulsive in the world are just that way because of the three modes of material nature. Therefore, the devotee Prabhupada said, when this question came up in a slightly different context, devotees were shaking hands. We used to shake hands with everybody. Now we've abbreviated it to do the fist bump. Because I still shake hands with people because I think it's a really good way to make visceral connection with people. First fist bump, and they go for that, and then they go for the full thing. But some devotees were saying that Sankirtan devotees are doing that all day long, which we were. And he said, you're taking their karma, because you're intimately associating with people shaking their hands. And Prabhupada didn't agree with that at all. Somebody just made that up. Prabhupada didn't say it. And when Prabhupada heard it, he said, no, just like a doctor goes in and works with patients all day long, but knows how to inoculate them. So not inoculate, but it's prophylactic. He takes all precautions so that he's not infected by the patients. And in a similar way, the devotees' prophylactic is that they are always chanting Hare Krishna. They see through the Shastra and so forth. So the seeing here means seeing and then meditating on it like, oh, I wish I had that. Like Prabhupada told the first sannyasis, they said, don't look at other people's material condition and think, oh, I wish I had that kind of life. That's the kind of seeing, that's dhyayato visham pumsam. You're contemplating it, thinking like, oh, what if I had that? And so it's a different interaction.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
In the same vein, it's a standard excuse that, oh, I can't go preaching because it's so contaminating, so I'd rather stay in the Dham and worry about my own salvation. So, because otherwise I'll become contaminated. I'm too weak. You heard that one before. So, do you bother trying to state your case, or you just let it slide because you know they already made up their mind? They don't want to venture out of comfort or fear.
Did you actually meet somebody who said that?
Oh yeah, just last night.
Really?
It's a very common very common scenario.
Well, I don't know what I'd say to a person, or it depends on each individual, but I do regularly talk about how going out into the great unknown, also known as the public, and trying to present Krishna consciousness is a high sadhana. And rather than weaken one or distract one, it gives great strength. Look at the example of Narada Muni when he was a little kid, 5 years old, and he went off into the great unknown, and he wandered through various parts of God's creation. As Prabhupada mentions, he was observing how God's energies were working. And he said, this is the prerogative of the bhakta, to go out into the world and see God's creation. We don't recoil from it and falsely, but we go and see how the modes are working. And what better context to see that and become fortified by that by going out to distribute books. For instance, door-to-door book distribution, and notice every door you open, you get a little snapshot of the modes of nature. We were going in some apartment buildings in Toronto. A lady opened the door. She had all these birds flying around in her apartment. Round and round they were flying. And then we've been in other people's. You see the most amazing things inside people's homes. And also, you could see the way people live sometimes. You wonder how they would survive in that environment. It's so overcrowded and filled with garbage and things like that. And then on the other hand, you could see the higher modes, and even we met this lady in Colorado recently. It was one of those apartments that I was squeamish just walking around. I thought the stairs might break. It was scary. And we went to the very lowest rung of the ladder down to the lowest level. It's really dark and dank down there. Knocked on the door. As soon as the lady opened the door, she started saying, "I'm in a hurry. I have time for all this." And then she saw we had a Bhagavad Gita, and she said, "Oh, come in." She said, "I've been looking for that for a long time. You come in." She turned out to be the nicest person in the world. What happens to one's vision of the world when you're repulsed? Your mind says you could be swallowed up by this stairwell, and I don't want to go there. And then all of a sudden you realize there's a soul in there that's got some sukriti and is ready to take the... So that strengthening, rather than just sequestering oneself, it's a good idea. Prabhupada wanted us to come to the Dham and then go back out and then come back. It's a better formula. Imho.
Thank you for sharing your realization.
I mean, how many times does Prabhupada quote Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur about doing private bhajan and saying it's a form of cheating?
I was just in Ukraine and I met this young couple, young family, and they're seemingly busy, occupied with their own stuff. But then when they saw the books, they said, "We had a Bhagavad Gita, but we lost it. We were living at a place that was owned by devotees, and we had a Bhagavad Gita, but we don't have it. Can we have one?" And I was surprised by their eagerness, just because they had associated with devotees. They had the good fortune to live in a place that was owned by devotees, or devotees were their neighbors, and they came in contact. So even though seemingly very unlikely candidates, normally would say, "Oh, okay, young family, busy with other stuff," but they were super, super excited to get the Bhagavad Gita. They didn't have much, but they scrambled whatever they had, and I would given it to them for free just because of their enthusiasm.
And don't you find, Navina Nirada, and all your intrepidness going all over the world distributing books, that when you see that kind of enthusiasm, you might sometimes think, "Oh, I wish I had that." It's enervating. It's energizing, the opposite of enervating. It means, we see that and we think, "Oh, they're more enthusiastic than I am to read the Bhagavad Gita." And we think, "I wish I could be more like that." So it is not just fortifying, but it's energizing to go out into the great unknown. Okay, Mukaravinda. And then the outside people's party. Yadutama. Go ahead. What? See if you can win something? Oh, he raised his hand and then he stole the mic from you. Okay. Go ahead.
Guru Maharaj, there are many verses that directly points out, like I'll read this line that Prahlad Maharaj recited this verse to the effect that one cannot become lost devotee without receiving the mercy and blessings of another devotee. And there are like tons of verses in this chapter that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling in the same theme. And I remember when there was once in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives the definition of ahimsa, and he says that when you are not actively distributing, you are doing the hinsa. And I was just trying to correlate, because if devotee had that prerogative that from them only the lost devotee, without receiving the mercy of or blessing of devotee, another can't become devotee, so then definitely is a hinsa, because if Krishna has given that, or even Prabhupada says in the purport that a doctor, and if there is some plague happening, and if he's holding he's not doing his duty, that is doing the hinsa. And somehow this realization dawned into me now when I read this sequence of verses, and that how it is hinsa. And maybe I'm wondering if you
can think if you go to some obscure place. For instance, we're in Southern California, and we went to a Vietnamese mall. It was a three-story mall, and veranda type setup. And we decided to go to the very top. Most of the shops were closed, and to get to the only open shop, we had to go all the way up 3 flights of stairs and then walk down at least 100 yards to get to this shop. And they were surprised that we came in, because there's no traffic up there at all. And after some interaction with them, which I won't go into right now, they ended up taking a book. And when we were leaving, we were thinking, yeah, how else would they have gotten something? And you can really think like that. Somehow Krishna used us to get to one of the most obscure places on earth and make sure somebody gets a book. Okay, Balabhachandra, and then we'll go to Yadutama, because they're having a quibble over here over the microphone. Trying to calm things down in here.
In verse 62, there was a line that really stood out to me. It says, the best achievement of all fruitive activity is detachment from material life. And it just seems one of those role reversals that you have in the Bhagavatam, just all succinctly in that one line.
Very interesting, too, from the point of view of did you get the message from the material nature that this is futile? Like, that's what you're supposed to come to after Bahunam Jamanamante, after so many lifetimes. You go like, yeah, this is not working. Thank you. I noted that too. The fantastic catch there. Yadutama Prabhu, your turn.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. This is a kind of an idea or a speculation I've had for a while, and I'd like to clear it up here and now, if it's possible. Just thinking about these verses about the different levels of Uttama Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Kanishta Adhikari. In the Bible, it says, that only no one can come to the Lord except through me. Jesus Christ says this, and then, as we know in the Quran, it says that this is like the final teaching, and that there's no teachings after the Quran. Kind of an idea I had was this is a mechanism created by Krishna to help protect Kanishta Adhikaris in their faith, that so they don't go wandering around so much. And I was wondering your thoughts on these kind of
When
verses.
you say this, you're saying this tendency or this way of stopping all other teachers after the last teacher?
Yeah, just that not accepting, just very, very fierce defense of their own faith and not seeing, Krishna in all sorts of faith. We say Uttama Adhikari, they see Krishna everywhere, and all religions are the same. But then you go down to Kanishta Adhikari, it's this is the only way kind of thing. Like my cup of tea is the best cup to drink the tea from, and other people who are drinking from different shapes, different kinds of teacups, they're wrong. So my question, let me just reiterate my question one more time. is it a correct assumption, or it's just a speculation that I have, that these kind of instructions made by Jesus Christ and saying that no one comes to the Lord except through me, and then the Quran saying that this is the final teaching of the Word of God, these are protection for the Kṛṣṇa adhikaris in a way. I don't know if I worded that quite succinctly or not.
Yeah, I understood your point, and I just wonder how much protection it actually gives people if you keep them as Kṛṣṇa adhikaris for the generations to come. Yes, there are very directed statements towards being true to your school so that people don't become confused. It also depends on the context too. You have to take teachings according to who they were spoken to at a particular time and place and circumstance to see exactly who they were talking to. We can generalize, but it may not be as effective as seeing who said what to whom and at what time, what were the exact circumstances of those times. And it may very well be that people really needed some guardrails in order to stay faithful because they didn't have much other, because they were maybe contending against other ideas, like in the Roman Empire, there was so much paganism, and then Christianity came up, and just to wall them off from the Roman Empire and all that was going on there, and they were murdering Christians who took to their faith, to keep them steady. It's like, this is the main thing. But it's also not helpful if people, and Prabhupada mentioned this earlier, or was in the text, it's not helpful to keep people in the Kṛṣṇa level. They have to make advancement, krame, step by step. There has to be more information to help people advance to the next levels. And so, yes, definitely there are statements there to help people become fully dedicated and loyal to a path. But it doesn't mean for all time having such that people shouldn't advance to the next levels of knowledge to understand the science of God, as we're hearing from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's giving an elaborate framework for people to understand how God comes in different forms, how he's represented by people, but there is a gold standard, and that is a haitukiya pratiyata, that wherever you see unmotivated, uninterrupted service, then it's to be understood as important rather than just cordoning off into a particular religious system. Yes, Mahendra Prabhu would like to continue this conversation.
But not on that topic. Going back to the Prabhu's quote that you also noted, it's just the continuation of that sentence. It didn't stop there. That the best one can learn from material enjoyment is detachment, which devotees spontaneously enjoy when they are firmly fixed in the devotional service. So my question is that to be firmly fixed, it is seemed. I mean, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that a symptom of nishta, or how you can recognize if somebody is nishta, is attain that steadiness, as to what extent the devotional service is intense, the intensity of it, or its lackness. And if we see in the devotee's life, it seems that's a challenge to maintain in the long term a steady engagement in the basics of hearing and chanting, basic practices. That firmness and determination, how one can develop or build it up.
How one can
develop this firmness in devotional service and determination. So that is steady and fixed, from which the detachment will come, etc. Instead of being slack and not doing it regularly and properly with attention and care.
That's an observation? Or
it's a question, how to develop this firmness and determination.
Well, it takes inculcation. Because, like Gita Priya asked me the other night, she said, why does it seem easier to do the wrong thing than to do the right thing? And it's because of habit. Karanam guna sangosya, because of bad association, we've come to a point where it's second nature habit to do the wrong thing. What's that verse? Yamisha madhya seva janturhi tatra chodana vivastitish teshu vivaha jagna suragraha ashu nivritan ishta. Says in Bhagavatam that for a conditioned soul, it's natural to eat meat, have illicit sex, and take intoxication. These are the three things everyone wants to do just by nature. And to be reformed takes inculcation. One has to have, Prabhupada said, two things, knowledge and practice. And that has to be systematic. When Prabhupada was envisioning this great movement, he had a schema he charted out showing how he was going to make brahmanas. His extensive scheme to step-by-step elevate people to the highest level in the varnashram and beyond, obviously, by Krishna consciousness. And that's what's required. And that's also likely why Prabhupada emphasized just before he left that we should also widen that net and have varnashram availability to people so they could get regulated and make advancements. So we have to have some framework. That's why Prabhupada established communities and a society where people could associate and make gradual advancement through getting a taste for doing the right thing. Otherwise it doesn't happen by itself. Maya mugda jivana hi swata Krishna gyan jivere kripāya kola Krishna Veda Puran. That's a verse Mahaprabhu already quoted to Sanatana Goswami earlier here, and he said, it's not swata or automatically that people come out of Maya mugda, being ignorant. It requires an intervention of knowledge. Jivere kripāya kola, by the mercy of Veda Vyas, who's given the knowledge intervention, then people can come out. When I joined the temple, we had 5 classes a day for new bhaktas. 5 classes a day. Bhagavatam class, Gita class, Krishna book, Nectar of Devotion, and Shri Upanishad. Mandatory. I don't know, Yudhutama, did you get anything out of that rejoinder?
Yeah, I think...
I mean, one other thought was, before I interrupt you, I'm so sorry, just that it also seems to be a human tendency to lock in and not lock in, like, what was the last thing, and then, okay, that's it. We're it, that's it, there's no more after this, and nobody else can achieve it unless, of course, you come through us. It's sort of a human tendency called, Michel, the sociologist, said it was the iron laws of oligarchy. People tend, even with noble causes in the beginning, to tighten things up and try to control everything. And a lot of religious processes end up that way too, being institutionalized, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But there's a way in which, if it excludes others, like Smarta Brahmanism is the idea that only certain types of people can do this. And there are many other examples of that kind of thing. And even Prabhupada's the last prophet in a way, because that's it. Nobody else could attain what he attained. Is sort of a sub-theme of the Ritvik idea, that's it. Prabhupada was the last one, and he will be for 10,000 years. Apparently after that it stops. But it seems to be a tendency that people have. You just am sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, I just have an uncle who's very, I don't want to degrade him at all. He's very firm.
Especially if he's watching today's show.
I'm crossing my fingers. But he's very firm in his faith, and he's also, he likes preaching. He likes, shining the light of Jesus Christ into people's lives. He's very concerned about me and my, taking to Krishna consciousness. He hasn't expressed that to me directly, but he's expressed it to my mother. And it got to the point where at one time he came to my house and he was trying to preach to me, and I'm like, let's just talk about how loving God is. Let's just talk about how wonderful God is instead of looking at these disparities between our two faiths. I kind of said it a minute ago, but there's the analogy of the drink is the same, right? The love of God is the same. We might drink it from a blue-colored cup. We might drink it from a metal cup or something, but the drink is the same. And I think this is really, I think Kanishtas often tend to not take responsibility for themselves. And so, like as you were saying, that this kind of frees them from responsibility to go deeper and really deeply think about their own shastra, whether it's the Bible or it's the Quran. Because I have met Christians and Muslims who are actually very deeply philosophical, and they don't feel threatened by other faiths, and I think they also have good respect, a deep respect for other faiths too. I met this one Russian monk, they say Batushka in Russian, a renunciate, and I really appreciated what he said. He said, you have to choose a path. He said, I was about, I think 27 or so, 28. I had just taken to Krishna consciousness, and I wasn't revealing this to him. He was actually there preaching to my wife and I. My mother-in-law had asked him, invited him over for lunch to preach to my wife and I. And we didn't express that we were, practicing Krishna consciousness, but I really respected what he said. That he said, I've studied Buddhism, I've read the Bhagavad Gita, studied the Quran, and I just really appreciate the teachings of Jesus Christ. But he said it's important that you pick a path to go, and stay on that path. And I really appreciate what he said. So I think there are Madhyama and Uttama devotees in any faith. I think there's one commentary where Prabhupada says that in every major religion there's Uttama Adhikaris. I don't know the exact quote, and my memory might be cheating me, but I'm pretty sure Prabhupada
I don't know that quote either, but it is a generally observed phenomenon amongst those who are, well, I'll just say it's generally the case that people who are more deeply involved with studying a particular discipline to be more open-minded, because the more they know about it, the more they see commonalities, and also they see the apparent contradictions within their own process if they've really thought about it. But Kanishtas, neophytes, tend to grab onto one thing. Like at a football game, they used to have these things where they put up a sign that said John 3:16 when somebody's kicking a field goal, so everyone could see that there's only one way, which is through Jesus Christ. And that's about the level of the consciousness at a football game. But if you get into somebody who's actually looking more deeply into the tradition and understands the gaps and sees the basic principle behind it, they tend to be more open-minded, which means more like Madhyam. Okay, we'll take maybe one more, and then we got to soldier on. Two more, because Devrath has really got his hand high. Okay, go ahead.
You were talking about how the devotee that preaches doesn't become contaminated. In Bhagavad Gita 3:14 purport, Prabhupada says, the devotees of the Lord who are in Krishna consciousness offer food to Krishna and then eat it, a process which nourishes the body spiritually. By such action, not only are past sinful reactions in the body vanquished, but the body becomes immunized to all contamination of material nature. When there is an epidemic disease, an antiseptic vaccine protects a person from the attack of such an epidemic.
Thank you. Fantastic. What a great quote. And the last one is from Devavrata.
Guru Maharaj, we had two more devotees who had raised their hands.
Two more and then we got to stop. There's two behind you. Oh, I didn't mean to discourage anybody. Anybody can speak. We'll keep it going.
Hare Krishna. This is from text 71. Before this text, there are three verses quoted from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Kanishta, Madhyama and Uttama. But in 71, Prabhupada writes the purport to all the three. And Prabhupada is very clear that the neophyte, that is the Kanishta, doesn't have a firm faith, and his devotion is mixed and it is not pure and transcendental. And the same Prabhupada says for even the Madhyama, that even the Madhyama is not qualified for pure devotional service. It is only the Uttama devotee who is qualified from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu perspective. So my question is that even in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu verses, if you see the original verses, the use of the term adhikari only comes in the definition of the Uttama and not in the definition of Kanishta or the Madhyama. So based on faith, Shraddha Anusari, is it that one has to come to the point of Uttama and only then pure devotional service begins? Because Prabhupada is quoting Sarva Dharman Parityajya and Sharanagati, as long as one has not attained the level of complete surrender.
When it comes to classifying devotees, there are various ways of doing that. Various Shastras point out different qualifications for levels of Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam. There's the definitions from Bhagavatam that we have. We have also from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One other place I'm aware of the categories, but I can't remember. Maybe it's from the Mahabharata. And what's more, there are some commentary that talks about, Jiva Goswami talks about how there's Kanishta Kanishtas, Madhyam Kanishtas, and Uttam Kanishtas. And then you have Madhyam Kanishta, Madhyam Madhyam, and Uttam Madhyam. And then you have, let's say, I'm just testing my IQ. Getting ready for the SATs. Then you have Uttam Kanishta, Madhyam Kanishta, and Uttam Uttam. Reason it's important is because it's a little fluid, and there are many more levels or categories by which one could consider the qualification of devotee. And what's most important in what Lord Chaitanya says here is that the Kanishta, krame, step by step, by following the process, especially chanting Hare Krishna, following a pure devotee, can come to the Uttama platform. Because whatever condition one's in now, if one follows the process, one should be able to rise to the highest platform. It's not, there is an idea that Uttama is all important and that nobody else can get there. If you're there on the Uttama platform, that's it. Everybody else is eternally disqualified in that level, from that perspective. But as far as the specific point that you made, can you point to the place where Prabhupada says that the Madhyama Adhikari is also not a pure devotee?
In the second paragraph, it should be understood that the Madhyama Adhikari, a second-class devotee, is fully convinced of Krishna consciousness but cannot support his convictions with Shastric evidence. A neophyte may fall down by associating with non-devotees because he is not firmly convinced and strongly. The second-class devotee, even though he cannot support his position with Shastra, can gradually become a first-class devotee by studying Shastra and associating with the first-class devotee. That means from the Madhyama he has to go to the Uttama. This is again from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu perspective.
Yeah. Well, why not go to Uttama Adhikari? And that's my point. Everybody can rise. That's what Lord Chaitanya is saying. And that's what Vyasadeva says in the Vedanta Sutra. It said the Shastra is all saying you should rise to the highest level, therefore you can. Because if you couldn't rise to the highest level, then the Shastra would be illogical to say rise to the highest platform. And there's also the way of defining what a pure devotee is. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Apichet sudaracharo bhajate mam mananyabhak sadareva samantavya samyag vyavasito hi saha. Which means that even if somebody at this point is encumbered by some worldliness, because their determination and intention is fixed properly, then he says, Krishna says emphatically, you have to consider them sadhus. And that's a big name. They're called a sadhu. What's more, you find the nuances and definitions in the Nectar of Instruction, in verse number 5, in the purport. Prabhupada describes Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttam more in the context of, let's say, our ISKCON society. And then he describes a neophyte as somebody who just joined and is just making their way, getting chastised by everybody for sitting in the wrong direction. And then there's the Madhyama Adhikari, but then he gives the Uttama Adhikari. He says somebody who's been practicing for a long time and is shown they're steady in the process, and they preach, and they know Shastra. Now, those are verifiable. You can see if somebody's doing that, because they either show up or they don't. And then, do they know Shastra? Well, I mean, there are different levels of knowing Shastra, but if they know the basic Shastra enough to establish that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and some other things, that's pretty good. And then that they preach. If you try to take other kinds of definitions of Uttamadhikari, which are bandied about a lot, like how do you judge somebody's faith? And, okay, they have to be seeing Krishna directly. Well, just ask them, are you seeing Krishna directly? Even the 6 Goswamis say, no, we don't see Krishna, we're looking for him. And if somebody does say they saw Krishna last night and were dancing with him, how are you going to prove otherwise? Say, yeah, I dance with him every night. And then say, okay, well, prove me wrong that I wasn't dancing with him. So that's not the means by which we judge whether somebody is a Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama. It has to be verifiable signs. Madhvacharya says, when you're discerning a advanced devotee, you can't judge by the ecstatic emotions, because some pure devotees hide their emotions. That's in that verse, Evam Vritasva Priya Nama Kirtya. He said there's only 2 ways by which you can judge the pure devotee, and that's one is by their steadiness, and the other is by what they say. And do they speak about Krishna, and is their speech merciful? I could look more closely into it at the definitions. We can go back, but those are the peripheral ideas I have around your question, Prabhu. And Devavrata for the close. Is everyone okay out there?
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to contribute this to the discussion which Yudhutama Prabhu brought out. This is from Chaitanya Shikshamrita. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that there's 5 differences amongst religion. There's differences of teachers and prophets, differences in the worshipper's mentality and consequent expression of reference, differences in procedure of worship or ritual, difference in conceptions of God, and difference in God's name and God's statements due to difference in language. And then, I'm paraphrasing, he says a lot of nice things between this and the next statement. And there's a nice paragraph which kind of summarizes and gives a conclusion. Because of these 5 differences, it is only natural that various religions will appear quite different. However, it is improper and detrimental to argue over these differences. If you go to someone else's place of worship, you should think, the people are worshipping my Lord, but in a different way, because of my different training. I cannot comprehend this system of worship. However, through this experience, I can deepen my appreciation for my own system of worship. The Lord is only one, not two. I offer respect to the form I see here, and pray to the Lord in this new form that He increase my love for the Lord in His accustomed form. Those who do not follow this procedure, but instead criticize other systems of worship and show envy, hatred, and violence, are worthless and foolish. The more they indulge in useless quarreling, the more they betray the very goal of their religion.
Sagar, make sure you get that citation, put it on the record. Thank you. That was right to the point and very helpful. And that brings us to our Gayatri break. We'll come back here at 9 minutes after. Hare Krishna.